In this video, I'm going to show you 3 easy tricks that are going to help you to be able to tell whether or not an employer really values diversity and inclusion. I once heard a hiring manager call a candidate the N-word when reviewing resumes. This is when I was working for a really reputable company who is a top employer. The company said they valued diversity and inclusion, but clearly there were some misses. This is Career Interrupted. I'm Shauna, and I want to help you get the job of your dreams no matter your race or where you're from. This is the career channel for professionals who value diversity and inclusion. If that sounds like your thing, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to get notified when I release a new video. Okay, yes, for real, I heard a hiring manager call a candidate the N-word. I'm going to wrap up that story at the end of this video. In the meantime, here are 3 easy tricks that are going to help you assess whether or not an employer truly values diversity and inclusion. Trick 1 is to review the clues online. Scrutinize job descriptions, not just the one you're applying for, but look at other job descriptions too. Job descriptions, they help you get an overall vibe of the company's tone, the culture, what's important to them. This is a signal about whether or not that company values diversity and inclusion, and that is not a good sign. Go beyond the jobs page and check out the company's overall website. Assess whether or not they're explicitly talking about topics related to diversity and inclusion. Does this look like a priority for the organization? Is the workplace involved in the broader community? What kind of images are on the website? These are all clues. Don't rely on the images alone, but just keep in mind that they send sort of a signal about how sensitive that company is to making sure that underrepresented groups are actually represented in their marketing materials. You'll also want to check out sites like Glassdoor, where employees leave reviews and their experiences with the company. You always want to be careful when you're consuming these and do them with sort of a critical thought, because you never know what actually happened, but they're absolutely worth taking a look at and taking a read. My favorite thing to do when assessing whether or not a company is diverse and inclusive is looking at their leadership team. Go to the website, look up the leadership team. If all the leadership team is looking the same, probably not going to have a solid handle on diversity and inclusion. I love doing this with organizations too. Look at their board of directors. Is the board of directors the same person over and over again? It can be pretty revealing. If there are no members of minority groups sitting at the top levels of leadership in the organization, on a board, it's a bit red flaggy to me. For sure, there are realities in certain markets or what have you, but a company who is truly committed to inclusion is going to make efforts in their recruitment to make sure that various voices, different voices are heard at all levels of the organization. Easy trick 2 is to ask the company directly. You can learn a lot as you move through a company's interview process. Keep your eyes wide open and maintain an awareness that every single interaction and the people you meet are all cues and clues about the company's overall commitment to diversity and inclusion. Does every single interviewer that you meet with look, talk, act the same? If so, this should be a little bit of a red flag. The company's maybe looking for that same person again and again and again, and you might not fit that mold. Next, don't be afraid to ask questions in the interview process. Probe to identify stories of success from members of underrepresented groups inside the company. The more examples that you can find of diverse employees moving forward in the organization, the more encouraged you should feel. Ask a question like this: what type of people at your company get promoted and how are they celebrated? Inside of a big question like that, there's lots of opportunities for a company to weave in elements of diversity and inclusion and folks who have overcome certain adversities in their response. So no, you're not going to flat out ask about a minority getting promoted, but this question is a great way to gauge what's top of mind for the company. So pay particular attention to how they respond. An alternative to that question is to flat out ask, how does your company support minorities to progress and feel welcome. Now, the response to this one's going to be loaded. Not only are you looking for the words and messages that are communicated back to you, but the vibe and energy around those responses. If the interviewer is visibly uncomfortable and not cool answering this question, that's probably a pretty good indication that diversity and inclusion and supporting underrepresented groups, they aren't things that are talked about inside the company. Someone that is inside of an organization that is regularly discussing topics related to diversity and inclusion and the challenges that come along with that is maybe getting a little bit jazzed and excited to share with you all the ideas and programming and different options that they have available to support people of different backgrounds. The third easy trick is to trust your intuition every single time. The employee experience in a large organization can vary really greatly from one manager to another. This makes diversity and inclusion really, really tricky. While one manager might be fully committed and bought into diversity and inclusion, its benefits, and the programming the company offers, another manager might be a little bit more reluctant. As a potential new employee, your experience is really going to depend on which manager you're working for. There will be managers and employees who do not see the value in diversity and inclusion in the workplace. This can create clear disconnects within the team and the organization as a whole. Individual attitudes and biases are very, very difficult to predict and identify until you've gotten to know or had an experience with the certain individual. It might actually be surprising to learn what people, your manager or teammates, value as time goes on. Even if your research shows you, by all accounts, this is an organization that is committed to diversity and inclusion, if something feels off to you about your experience, trust that feeling. You've probably seen or heard something along the way that's made you feel that way. What's so hard when it comes to diversity and inclusion a lot of the times is that what we've experienced is really, really difficult to put a finger on and to articulate. Have you had an experience at work that made you question your organization's commitment to inclusion? Share it in the comments. Okay, that is 3 easy tricks to help you assess whether or not a company is actually committed to diversity and inclusion. I heard a hiring manager say the N-word inside of a company that fully talked about being committed to diversity and inclusion. This was a defining moment for me in my career for a lot of different reasons. So this manager had assumed that I wasn't Black when in fact I am. I am Black and I am white. So this particular comment struck a lot of feelings, both personally and professionally for me. This company talked about being fully committed to diversity and inclusion, but when this happened, I felt like I had no place to go to report it and I couldn't speak up. It really highlights the problem with having no representation. There was no representation in any level of leadership that I could go to share this experience with. I thought if I spoke up, I would be labeled a complainer. The manager that said this was much more senior than me. He was very connected politically inside the organization, and it's corporate. Politics are alive and well, and they can make or break your career. On top of this, I was not terribly well connected, and I was a female working in a completely male-dominated industry. I felt there was no action that could result in a positive outcome for me. Every single action ended in job loss for me. As a result, I kept this incident to myself. I shared it with my family and kept it private for a number of years. Not surprisingly, this was the beginning of the end of my long-term relationship with this employer. It was very clear to me inside of that moment that our values did not align if this was the type of person that you were letting lead divisions of the company. If you value diversity and inclusion, the company you work for should value diversity and inclusion too. And that commitment needs to go deeper than some photos of visible minorities on a website. Instead, the organizational makeup should actually include people of different backgrounds. Ideally, there are minorities in leadership roles. If there had been just one minority in leadership, might things have gone differently when I heard a hiring manager say the N-word? I mean, I don't know. But honestly, what a he was. If you want to hear a little bit more about my experience being mixed race, black and white, check out the video that I've linked in the description where I give a talk at my local Black Lives Matter movement. Make sure to subscribe. This is the career channel for professionals who value diversity and inclusion. Thanks so much for watching, and peace out.